Hello.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hello.
Two of the greatest comedy teams ever formed were the Marx Brothers and the Three Stooges. And today on Dust Steal Movies, we're going to decide which group is better by judging them in 5 different categories. So, take out your cigar and cozy up to your favorite society woman as we do the Marx Brothers versus the Three Stooges. I finally got my eyebrows done! Our first category is which comedy team had better characters. On screen there were 4 Marx Brothers. Each one had a one-of-a-kind, cartoon-like look. This was Groucho's. And they each had a unique personality and comedy style that they brought to the films.
The most famous is Groucho. He smokes a cigar, has a stooped-over walk, is typically romancing Margaret Dumont for her money, and is always making a wisecrack.
One morning I shot an elephant in my pajamas. How I got in my pajamas, I'll never know.
Then there's Chico. He's a dim-witted con artist who speaks with an especially phony Italian accent. He also plays the piano. He's no Beethoven, but he sure knows how to make it funny. Next, there's the childlike Harpo. He doesn't talk, but is a master of physical comedy and sight gags. In fact, most of them were his ideas, and the script would just say, Harpo comes in and does something funny. He also plays the harp beautifully. Finally, there's Zeppo. He seldom adds anything to the comedy, and is the basic straight man in their first 5 films. After he left the act, other actors would fulfill that function.
Zeppo tends to be off to the side, so him not being on par with the main 3 isn't that big of a deal. Just like the Marx Brothers, each one of the Three Stooges has a memorable and cartoon-like look. But they do it with hairstyle. Larry has the porcupine and Curly's bald. However, their characters are not as clearly defined as the Marx Brothers. They're basically 3 idiots running around. But within that umbrella, they do have unique personalities.
Their bossy leader is Mo. He's almost always angry, and slaps, hits, and insults the other members. Next, there's the happy-go-lucky middle stooge, Larry. He's like a half-stooge, half-normal human being, who gets in on the comedy, but also serves as straight man. Then there's the stooge we love the most, Curly. He's a child like a nut who does the craziest things. And just like with Harpo, there would be gaps in the scripts just for him to do his thing, and it's pure magic. Do you swear?
No judgy wudgy, but I know all the words.
After Curly had a stroke, Shemp became the third stooge. He's not quite as great as Curly, but he's still pretty crazy, and he improvised a lot too. However, instead of being childlike, he's more like the goofiest uncle you've ever had. After Shemp died, there was the whiny Joe Bescher, who never quite fit in with the Stooges. Then when he had to take care of his sick wife, there was Curly Joe, who was like a more mild and significantly less funny version of Curly.
If I was doing a list of top comedians of all time, I would put Groucho, Harpo, and Curly in the top 10. Mo, Larry, Shemp, and Chico, top 25. And Zeppo and the 2 Joes, top 1,000? And that's 2 top 10s against 1. So the point goes to the Marx Brothers. Our next category is who's better at verbal comedy. Just for that, you're disqualified. So we'll take a look at Groucho and Chico. No one could insult someone like Groucho Marx. Why don't you go home with your wife? I'll tell you what, I'll go home to your wife. Now outside of the improvement, she'll never know the difference.
Mrs. Claypool, all of New York will be at your feet.
Well, there's plenty of room. Ravelli, how much do you charge to run into an open manhole? Just to cover the charge. Well, why don't you drop in sometime? Fans used to ask, please insult me, because he was so good at it. He also does puns, plays on words, sexual innuendos, and just plain goofy remarks. And it comes out as a steady stream of one funny thing after the next, and he is probably the best verbal comedian of all time. As for Chico, he could hold his own with Groucho, and their back and forth is always hilarious. I couldn't afford to send for my grandfather, so I sent for his beard. You couldn't afford to send for your grandfather, so you sent for his beard? Yeah, it's coming by hair mail. When I was rewatching The Stooges for this review, I was actually impressed by their verbal comedy. They have some good zingers and some memorable catchphrases. Calling Dr. Howard, Dr. Fine, Dr. Howard. I can't see, I can't see. What's the matter? I got my eyes closed. Omaha. Ah! However, a lot of the verbal humor from the Stooges comes from either insults like "hey numbskull" or just from them being stupid. Which is funny because of their delivery, but it doesn't reach to the creative heights of the Marx Brothers. Also, while the Stooges will every so often have a really great verbal joke, like maybe a couple really awesome ones per short, with the Marx Brothers, it's one after another. So the point goes to the Marx Brothers. I'll squash you!
Now for our next category.
Who's better at physical comedy?
The Marx Brothers are great at physical comedy and have some fabulous gags, like Groucho's dance moves, the mirror scene, and the mayhem they cause in Monkey Business. But the Three Stooges aren't only great at physical comedy, they created their own style of it.
They had their trademark gags, like the slap. You see this? Yeah. And the eye poke, which was done by quickly hitting the brow bone, combined with the facial expressions of Moe's viciousness and Curly's agony. Should I tell them not to try that at home? It'll be funny if they miss. It's done in a fast, cartoony style, and is almost always accompanied by a funny sound effect. Honestly, when the Marx Brothers are doing hitting humor, I miss that Stooge style, so the point goes to the Three Stooges. Why, certainly! Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. Now for our next category. Who stood the test of time better? In their defense, the Marx Brothers were older when they started making films. But their movie career really only lasted 12 years. Then they did a couple ones afterwards whenever Chico needed money. But the Three Stooges steadily turned out films for 40 years. They faced changing times. For example, shirts went out of style, so they had to start making feature films. And they dealt with the mortality of its members, the death of Curly and Shemp. But they were able to continuously adjust their act to bring in new members. For example, Joe Besser didn't like to get hit very much. Well, that's okay, we'll just hit Larry more. Now, the Marx Brothers did become less antagonistic from their early 30s to the late 30s, but they never faced the same changes the Three Stooges did. As for modern audiences, the Three Stooges are more popular. Their slapstick is just as funny now as it was then. And it can be fully appreciated by both kids and adults. Also, because they mainly made short films, which were about 20 minutes long, the slower pacing that is often found in older movies isn't really an issue. Now, because the Marx Brothers did feature films, there are occasional slow spots. And the occasional bits of referential humor don't work as well anymore, because you most likely won't get the reference.
Also, although the brothers didn't mean any harm, there are a few bits that if you don't fully understand the context of the era, could easily come across as offensive to modern audiences. Like when the Marx Brothers disguise themselves in blackface to escape the police.
The Marx Brothers are still fresh and fun, but in this category, it's hard for anyone to compete with our favorite knuckleheads. So the point goes to the Three Stooges. Boss eats no good. Hey, Mrs. Rittenhouse baby, our final category is who made better movies.
The Marx Brothers movies are crazy, funny, and brilliant. In fact, 5 of them are on the AFI Top 100 comedy list. That's even more than Charlie Chaplin has. What a loser. They have great satire, terrific musical numbers, and many of the comedy scenes had already been perfected on stage before they went on film, and you feel the expertise. As I mentioned, for the majority of their career, the Stooges did shorts, so they were made faster, cheaper, and didn't have the same level of care that the Marx Brothers films had. But some of them were really terrific, and their short Men in Black was nominated for Best Short.
While the Stooges certainly made more films, even their best don't compete with the Marx Brothers' masterpiece of Duck Soup. Unfortunately, as the brothers got older, their film quality declined. The later films weren't as crazy, and the scripts just weren't as good. However, the Three Stooges declined too. First of all, their budgets were cut. So to save money, they would reuse footage from older shorts and put it into new ones. As a result, the plots became a little clunky. Also, Joe Besser and Curly Joe weren't anywhere near as good as Curly and Shemp. Even worse, those mean people out there, known as parents, began to complain about the violence. As a result, they had to cut down on the slapstick.
Ultimately, if I knew nothing about either group and was shown what I considered to be their worst films, The Big Store and Snow White and the Three Stooges, I'd still see some of what made the Marx Brothers special and would be willing to check out more. but I would have no interest in pursuing the Three Stooges. So the point goes to the Marx Brothers.
Now let's tally up the score. 1, 2,
3, dummy.
3, dummy. And the winner is the Marx Brothers. Both are great comedy teams, and while it may be easier to just pop into Three Stooges and enjoy, if you give the Marx Brothers a chance and say, I'm going to pay attention to the dialogue. And if there's a slow spot, I'm going to put on my big boy mustache and just deal with it. You are going to get so much more out of the Marx Brothers and laugh a lot more. So, thank you for watching Dusty Old Movies, and I'll see you in the funny papers.